Uh, Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Today is Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. We are gathered for our Administrative Matters meeting. As is our tradition, please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. My name is John Kafalis, Commissioner from District 1, joined by my colleagues, Kristen Stevens, Commissioner from District 2, and Jody Shedek McNally, Commissioner from District 3. Along the way, we have Lindsay from the Clerk and Recorder's Office. Thank you for being here. She is the one responsible for recording the meeting, which is a public meeting, of course, as well as taking notes. We have Lori Kadrich, our assistant and acting county manager at the moment, and then Tom with public affairs, and Sarah with our office. So with that, we'll begin or continue. First order of business is public comment. We have a few folks signed up. The first person is Cindy Buckhart. Cindy, good morning and welcome. Again, just to make sure folks know, we're asking that you try to keep your comments within 3 minutes, please. Morning.
Good morning. I brought copies of an email that I received from Commissioner Kafalis on October 3rd. The email stated that you, the commissioners, do not feel that the Larimer County 4-H Foundation qualifies as a 4-H entity. I'm going to recap what the email stated. Point 1, it was stated that the Larimer County 4-H Foundation is an independent, private 501c3 organization with a self-appointed board of directors. This is somewhat correct. However, we are required to have a person representing Larimer County Extension attend all of our meetings. Point 2, the official CSU Extension Service 4-H program has no authority over the Foundation's funds, actions, or decisions. This is incorrect. Per our MOU with CSU Extension 4-H and the Larimer County 4-H Foundation, the Larimer County Extension is responsible for ensuring that the funds are only being raised to support 4-H programs and that the funds are not being improperly distributed. Point 3 that was made. Our agreement, meaning you, the commissioners, is with CSU Extension and is limited to CSU Extension programming and not other related foundations or nonprofit organizations. The 4-H name and emblem is a federal mark and protected as such. The 4-H name and emblem can be used only as authorized. The primary consideration for granting authorization to use the 4-H name and emblem is for educational and character building purposes of the 4-H program, to serve educational needs and interests of 4-H youth. The Larimer County 4-H Foundation has such permission. The Larimer County 4-H Foundation is to provide financial support for Larimer County 4-H in their participation in the 4-H Youth Development Program of Colorado State University, to assist in the further development and participation of Larimer County youth in the 4-H program as stated in our MOU. I think it's very apparent that the Larimer County 4-H Foundation is 4-H as defined in the McKee Charitable Trust and should not be considered a nonprofit for the ability to charge for the use of the facilities at the ranch. Being considered a nonprofit, we have received an estimate for the 66th annual Larimer County 4-H Foundation Carnival of nearly $12,000. At this rate, the Larimer County 4-H Foundation would not have any funds left to support the Larimer County 4-H programs, clubs, and the scholarships it awards.
Thank you, Cindy. The next person that has signed up is Patty Thomas. And my understanding is that there are 3 people here who wish to speak to the matter of fluoridation in the water. And Patty, perhaps you could explain how you're going to allocate the time.
Yeah. Good morning. I'm Patty Thomas. I'm going to just
The
speak.
the smaller microphone is the one that's
smaller.
on.
Thank
Sorry.
you. How's that? Okay.
Much better.
Thank
Gosh.
you. I'm just going to introduce the video, and then Heather and Judy can either join me up here or they're here as our two people for our 6-minute video. Okay. The video we will play for you today features Linda Birnbaum. Linda is a board-certified toxicologist and microbiologist who served as a federal scientist for 40 years. Dr. Birnbaum was director of the National Institute of Environmental Health Sciences of the NIH and the National Toxicology Program from 2009 to 2019. Prior to her appointment at NIH, she spent 19 years at the EPA, where she directed the largest division on environmental health research. Our Board of Health member, Bernie Birnbaum, is Linda's son. Most importantly, Linda was also the NTP director who initiated the neurotoxicity review of fluoridation. So we can also thank her for making the recent NTP report possible. She co-authored an op-ed for Environmental Health News in October of 2020 titled, "It is Time to Protect Kids' Developing Brains from Fluoride." Referring to that recent NTP report on neurotoxicity from fluoride exposures, Linda's expressed opinion was, quote, "The NTP's conclusion was strengthened by a synthesis of high-quality studies showing that children who were exposed to higher amounts of fluoride during early brain development scored about 3 to 7 points lower on their IQ tests. Their conclusion is consequential. About 75% of Americans on community water systems have fluoride in their tap water. Water is the main source of fluoride for many people who live in communities with water fluoridation." Still quoting Linda, "When do we know enough to revise long-held beliefs? We are reminded of the discovery of neurotoxic effects of lead. Despite early warnings of lead toxicity, regulatory actions to reduce childhood lead exposures were not taken until decades of research had elapsed and millions more children were poisoned. Why are beliefs about the safety of fluoride so intransigent in the face of consistent evidence to the contrary?" This 6-minute video excerpt is from a presentation that Linda Birnbaum did for the nonprofit, the Center for Health, Environment, and Justice, in May of 2022. The presentation was primarily on her career, her time at NIH, and PFOAs, but during the Q&A portion, she answered a question about fluoridation. This video clip was her answer.
Thank you, Patty, and
Thank you.
appreciate the intro. And just to clarify, the video was submitted yesterday, kind of following our procedures, so we are aware. So we'll go with it.
Should I stay here or should I sit down? What would you prefer?
I don't know. It's a free country still. What do you prefer?
I'll stay here. Linda, Judy,
Well, again, keeping in mind we have 6 minutes, and then I don't know.
So I didn't take my full 3, and it's only 6 minutes, 12 seconds, so feel free to cue it up.
I reckon we'll be okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to sit down.
Recommended level. If you were going to do it in drinking water, we lowered the recommended level. If you were going to do it in drinking water, we lowered it from 1.2 ppm to 0.7 ppm. I think it needs to come way down below that, if we even need it at all. I think I'm going to have the most information on the first part of the question, which really has to do with the developmental neurotoxicity of fluoride. I am quite convinced by the burgeoning literature, and this is really based largely on the human data, that elevated fluorine is a problem for the development of babies' brains. I should say, the brain develops very early in utero, and then brain development continues through actually about age 25. But the real critical windows appear to be early in utero and early infantile. There is no good data today showing that fluoridation protects against cavities. That was the basis of the 1962 Public Health Advisory, in which the levels were set at 1.2 ppm inorganic fluoride being put in the water. But as more and more fluoride is present in our environment overall, I think everyone, just about everyone, uses fluoridated toothpaste, fluoridated mouthwash. A lot of, especially black teas, have high levels of fluoride in them, and so on. We get lots of fluoride from environmental sources that we don't really need it added to our drinking water anymore. I initiated a program when I was director of NTP to do a systematic review of fluoride neurotoxicity. Let's just say we've been waiting for those reviews to be actually published. Drafts were sent to the national academies, which I had decided upon doing rather than our normal external peer review process because of the political nature of drinking water fluoridation. There's a very, very strong dental lobby that believes that fluoridation is protective against tooth decay. I will say there is no benefit of ingested fluorine. The benefits of fluorine to teeth are topical. So swishing as an adult, or even as not a very young child, but a child, is probably going to be fine. Remember, you swish and they tell you to spit it out. You don't swallow it, but there's no benefits to ingested fluorine. So I actually wrote an editorial. My goodness, now it's a year and a half or 2 years ago, where I called for pregnant women not to drink fluoridated water. And of course, we all encourage that breast is best if women can to nurse their babies, because fluorine is not transmitted through breast milk to the babies. But if you're going to use formula for your baby, please don't use fluoridated water. I just checked with some of my former colleagues at NTP. This report has been scheduled to be released multiple times. Report repeatedly delayed. The person who was my associate director of NTP, who's now working as a volunteer to get this report out, feels that it will finally come out. We had another release date of May 18th, which just passed, and he is hopeful that it will finally come out soon. But it has been a long, arduous process. I am not terribly familiar with the impacts that fluoride might have on the kidney or its autoimmune effects. I know, at high concentrations, we know that fluoride can be associated with skeletal fluorosis. At slightly elevated concentrations, I was on a committee with the Public Health Service that in 2015, we lowered the recommended level. If you were going to do it in drinking water, we lowered it from 1.2 ppm to 0.7 ppm. I think it needs to come way down below that, if we even need it at all.
Thank you very much for considering this as seriously as the issue is. Please protect our children and our population. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Judy, and thank you, Heather. We'll continue with our, and thank you, Sarah, for helping to coordinate some of this. We'll continue with public comment. The next person signed up here is Zach Thode. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Zach Thode here, Livermore, Colorado. I have some concerns about the Board of County Commissioners' attempts to work on affordable housing and land prices in Larimer County. Recently, I have 3 examples. Recently in Larimer County, in Livermore, there was a lot of contention about potential development in Livermore. Myself and another neighbor have worked really hard to try to put some of that property that was potentially of high development value with additional water supplies into a conservation easement. Now, some of that conservation easement, we asked if we could relieve some of that property so that it could potentially be irrigated in the future, because it's in North Pooter's service area, and North Pooter's service area is losing irrigated land as we speak every day as towns grow out into the urban or the rural areas. Your water plan says that you guys, that the county is pushing to protect water supplies in the county. Therefore, we need to protect the ability to irrigate in the county. Well, now your county open space staff has refused to engage on this conservation easement because I've asked for irrigation on that property. And now the only licensed appraiser that's willing to work on conservation easements in Larimer County is refusing to work on it for fear of retribution from your county open space staff. That's a problem. Now, also, the open space money has gone on 3 properties recently in northern Larimer County. Every single time they've gone to a property, they've increased the value of range land in Larimer County by $3,000 each time without appraisals. So they're just going in and offering high amounts of money to these property owners and not giving fair values, and it's driving the price of land up. Therefore, it's driving the price of all affordable housing up. Now, the other examples are, in the last 4 years, the building department has come through twice and said, we're going to increase our building code requirements. Every single time they come through, they never spend any time trying to figure out how to make houses more affordable. All they do is make houses more expensive. I'm a licensed engineer in Larimer County. Every time I have to design a new building, it is horrendously more expensive. And then third, the final one, is I worked on the Climate Smart Future Ready initiative several years now. There has never been an attempt to discuss what the Climate Smart Future Ready efforts have done to the price of houses in Larimer County. I've asked numerous times and never been given an opportunity to have that conversation with people that will really be affected. And it's a concern of mine that we find ways to make sure that the lesser in this community have an ability to have housing at an affordable rate, and that the price of our water and the price of all of our utilities do not go out of control. I'm happy to help anytime. I've offered to help anytime, and numerous times I've been deferred.
Thank you, Zach. The next person on the list is it Tiffin? Tiffin Vaughn. Good morning and welcome.
My name is Tiffin Vaughn.
Tiffin, if you, I guess it's the shorter
name is
mic, which
Tiffin.
helps me a lot, but not taller people.
You can hold it too if you want.
My name is Tiffin Vaughn, and I live in North Fort Collins, zip code 80524. So I have a couple questions that I'm hoping to get some clarification. In regards to public hearings, what is the best way for citizens to submit information and comments about a project before you, as the commissioners, come to a decision? And then I'm also, because there seems to be some, depending on the public hearing, different interpretations on how citizens 2 or 3 minutes, depending on how many speakers are there, how, in some hearings in the past, it's been allowed that people can pool their time together and have one spokesperson. And I'd like some clarification on this, because when the developer of a project comes with their spokesperson, they clearly have an advantage. And it seems that it would be a more fair process to know ahead of time for residents that are wanting to public comment, how much time do they have, and can they pool their resources too and allot their minutes for one spokesperson? So you have my contact information. If you could please just clarify that for me so that we can best move forward for people that are trying to have valuable input. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffin, and I did note your email in my on my notes here. Thank you very much. Sarah, is there anyone who wishes to offer public comment through the phone system?
No, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. Before we close public comment, just want to give folks another opportunity, if they haven't already spoken, to offer public comment. Okay, we'll close public comment. Thank you all. And before we move on to the next agenda item, as you know, opportunity if the commissioners want to offer a little bit of feedback on, what they heard. Let's see, Commissioner Stevens, any thoughts, comments on the various folks who spoke?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for everyone who came out to speak this morning. Appreciate you coming to speak to us. I'll first talk about Cindy. It's clear that the foundation is a nonprofit. It's also a nonprofit that's associated with 4-H. So with regard to some costs, I think that I still have not had conversations about what that might look like. I know the value of the 4-H carnivals, so I will certainly try to get back to you soon about some of those decisions. With regard to the video on fluoride, that was informative. Thank you for bringing that forward. I'm not sure. Commissioner Cavalis can probably speak to where we're at with the Department of Health with regard to exploring that. But I think that the Department of Health would probably take its cue from the Colorado Department of Health or some national folks, and probably not make that decision kind of unilaterally would be my thinking. With regard to Zach, I don't know about that situation with the conservation easement, so I would have to look into that more. But thank you for bringing that to our attention. I think that you're right. With building codes, we're always kind of weighing whether the code helps with some of the environmental and climate issues that we're having versus affordability. And so I think that that's an ongoing conversation. But certainly happy to try to come up with what some of the codes might do to affordability. I don't know that that's been determined yet, honestly. To answer a couple questions that Tiffin asked. So I think that there's a couple ways you can get public information to us about public hearings that are happening in the future. Emails are always forwarded to the planning department, or they can be sent directly to the planning department. That way they become part of public record. So then when we do a hearing, we get a packet of all the emails. And I think that that's a great way to do it, just because it's there right in front of us. We read the packet before we conduct a public hearing. And, you can give details that maybe don't come out in just a 3-minute, there's no word limit, let's just say that, to an email that you can submit. With regard to pooled time, we haven't done pooled. We no longer do pool time. I don't know if this board has ever done pool time. What people can do is prepare something and then hand off, like was done this morning, to the next speaker. So you could have prepared statements and they could just be handed off, but the people have to be here in place. We certainly don't want to favor any side in any kind of way, but the public could speak for, potentially hours if enough people show up. And I think that that's part of the situation is each community member would have 3 minutes. That could potentially be triple or quadruple the time that the developer has, depending on how many people show up. So, but it has to be done in that way, where each person gets 3 minutes. And like I said, I've seen a situation, we've also been able to put people in blocks. So if 4 people are speaking and they've prepared one statement and they want to hand off to the next speaker, we can accommodate something like that. So I hope that's helpful. We can certainly give you more information. Our planning department can, or our assistant manager can do that as well. So I think I've addressed everything that I wanted to. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Commissioner Shattuck McNally, anything
Thank
to
you.
add?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just build off of work backwards for Tiffin. Thank you for coming. And I do appreciate you asking those questions. First, let me just state I recognize that our director of community planning and infrastructure and resources is in the audience, and she's indicated to me that she can talk with you out in the hallway before you leave today to give you some information and contact so you can talk with staff so you understand the process. Secondly, when we get these applications with land use, because we, as commissioners, we have a quasi-judicial executive legislative functions. When it comes to quasi-judicial during land use hearings, we cannot be having conversations with folks. We have to come to the hearing kind of impartial and not having outside conversations. So we do get all the emails and those comments in a packet that we review way before the hearing. And then we get any updates if there's more comments that came in, and then we listen to that public comment. Usually we have some that come with a very long, as Commissioner Stevens says, that the neighbors or folks with questions or concerns, or some in support, come and give that public comment. I think that usually when we all take turns alternating every year, that we try to, it is very prescribed how much the applicant or whoever has that application has only a certain amount of time to present, and then they have a certain prescribed time to rebut any public comments. And so that process is usually also, I think, spelled out on the website, but maybe there is some confusion, and that's maybe it's an area that we can work on if we still have some folks in the community that are not maybe fully clear on how our processes work when it comes to land use hearings. And so I encourage you to, I'm sure Director Ellis will maybe talk to you today, but we will definitely have some staff come and walk you through the process. And then and we can't really speak in particular for any projects that might be come before us. So I appreciate you coming. It's always good to hear from folks who are involved with our processes here at the county, especially if you have questions. Much rather do it way beforehand than after. And so I appreciate you being here today. It's really important that you understand where you can be involved and engaged and where you can get your questions asked. So I'm glad that you're here today. Back to Zach. Zach, appreciate you coming and bringing your concerns. Certainly there's some comments you made that I am concerned about, so I will definitely be looking into that. I think when it comes to affordable housing, certainly with some of the things that I've been involved with lately, what we just heard from Headwater Economics out of Montana, who studied a lot of some home hardening and some things that shows there is not a significant increase. I just saw and heard from some of that new research on and the data analysis by these economists that was brand new research that was just done that I listened to at Friday at CSU. And so certainly asking questions and looking into that. I think also this is land use and conservation easements, and how affordable housing is a complex subject, and there are a lot of factors that impact that. And so certainly we'll look into some of your comments. So I'll use that word. And also I just want to share that I appreciate you being involved with some of this, our public outreach on the water master plan, and also our climate smart future ready plans. These are important things to have multiple stakeholder voices and viewpoints involved. So I appreciate you bringing your perspectives to that conversation, because it is important that we listen to everyone when it comes to these big plans that affect everyone in the county. So thanks for being here today. Certainly we'll look into some of the things that you brought up. To the folks bringing the fluoride conversation, thank you for continuing to advocate for what you feel is a public health issue for our youth and for our community. We have been looking into this. We have tried to look at the report and the research. We've been asking questions from subject matter experts. We have asked our public health director to dive into it. We're looking at to what recommendations and what is happening at the state level. And we are still trying to gather that information and trying to get folks who have read the full report and to get some feedback on multiple perspectives on what that latest finding comes back as. So I appreciate you continue to be here. But as you know, we're not water providers. There's 124 water providers in the county, and we do not have jurisdiction over telling them what they do or do not do with their water that they provide. So certainly I hope that you're reaching out to all 124 water providers and providing this information as well, because they are the decision makers for the customers that they serve. But certainly the public health department is also have some recommendations and some purview in this, and that board I think is still evaluating this. As far as I know, we have not heard from them. So and then for Cindy, Cindy, certainly I value the work that you do and the foundation does, and I have helped and volunteered at the carnival. I certainly know we're asking questions and having conversations and looking into this, and so I'll just leave that there because I'm still trying to understand all of the factors that are involved with that. So that's all I have to say on that matter. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Well, let's see. What can I add to all of this? I guess regarding the first commenter, Cindy, work with Commissioner Stevens, support her efforts to get further clarification about $12,000 costs. I'll have another one of my ongoing conversations with our assistant county manager just to better understand what's going on. It's the best I can do. Regarding the folks who presented the video on the fluoride, in a recent communication from our public health director, my understanding is that further evaluating or looking at the court ruling and exactly what it means in terms of thresholds and all of that. So I think that's where our local public health department is at. And as has been stated, they try to work closely with the state CDPHE, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. But I think we should get information, and I think you all know that the Board of Health meeting is coming up soon, and I imagine you'll be present there. So I'm hoping to better understand what that court ruling is that is prompting, your advocacy, which has been ongoing for years, regarding lowering thresholds of fluoride in drinking water. With my friend and neighbor up there north, Zach, it's interesting that you mentioned the relationship between conservation easements and property valuations. I actually heard that from another producer on Saturday morning. So that causes me to want to find out more from our Department of Natural Resources. And I think you're aware, as a member of the Ag Advisory Board, we have gotten an agreement that I don't believe at our next meeting in November, but that there will be folks from the Department of Natural Resources present. And I think that's a plus. Also, on the housing side, I'm glad that our housing stability manager is here listening, and that she will be at the next Ag Advisory Board meeting to give a bit of a presentation on workforce housing as it relates to our agricultural economy, farm labor housing. We have been pushing that a little bit because it looks like all of the efforts in NOCO Works and economic and workforce development are not adequately addressing that part of the continuum. So I'm grateful for that, and certainly can follow up with Heidi to get more understanding about not listening or not taking input on the potential nexus between climate recommendations, addressing some of that, and how that affects housing. We know that there's a nexus between water, the cost of water, and housing. But I'm glad Aaliyah's here and she can help us try to navigate and better understand. And then thank you to Tiffin. I think my colleagues have commented. Leslie is here. There is a procedure and there are some options. I don't have a whole lot to add, but do have your email, and I'm sure Leslie can follow up, or our community development director can follow up. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. All right, we'll now move on. We'll move on. You all have a nice day. Gosh. So, next item is approval of the minutes. Commissioner Shattuck McNally, that one's yours.
I move to approve the minutes from the week of October 7th, 2024.
What was that date, please?
It's
October 7th, yes. Thank you. That is a proper motion. I was looking at something else. Proper motion, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. That passes unanimously. Next, we have review of the upcoming week, schedule review. That's Sarah Marchin.
This is the Commissioner's schedule for October 21st through the 26th. On Monday, October 21st, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., there will be a work session regarding the 2025 proposed county budget in the Commissioner's conference room on the second floor. From 12 p.m. to 1:30 p.m., there will be an elected officials lunch at the Stakeout Saloon at 152 West Mountain Avenue in Fort Collins. From 1:30 p.m. to 2:30 p.m., there will be a work session with Leslie Ellis, Director of Community Planning, Infrastructure, and Resources in the Commissioner's conference room on the second floor. From 4:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., there will be a Larimer and Boulder County Commissioners joint meeting at TPC Colorado at 2375 TPC Parkway in Berthoud. On Tuesday, October 22nd, from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., there will be an Administrative Matters meeting in the hearing room on the first floor. From 1:30 p.m. to 3 p.m., from Wednesday, October 23rd, from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m., Commissioners Kafalas and Shattuck McNally will attend the North Fort Collins Business Association meeting at the Rocky Mountain Innisphere at 320 East Vine Drive in Fort Collins. From 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., Commissioner Shattuck McNally may participate in the virtual Big Thompson Watershed Health Partnership meeting. From 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., Commissioners Kafalas and Stevens will attend a solid waste update meeting in the Sprague Lake Conference Room on the second floor. From 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., Commissioner Kafalas may attend the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Advisory Board meeting at the Fort Collins Museum of Discovery at 408 Mason Court in Fort Collins. From 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., Commissioner Stevens may attend the Fair Board meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it's at the Thomas M. McKee 4-H Youth and Community Building at 52800 Arena Circle in Loveland, or virtually via Zoom. On Thursday, October 24th, from 1:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m., Commissioner Kafalas will attend the Red Feather Lakes Planning Advisory Committee meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it will be at 44 Firehouse Lane in Red Feather Lakes, or virtually via Zoom. From 2 p.m. to 4 p.m., Commissioner Shattuck McNally will attend the Regional Opioid Abatement Council meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it will be at the Behavioral Health Services at Longview Campus at 2260 West Trilby Road in Fort Collins, or virtually via Zoom. From 3 p.m. to 4:30 p.m., Commissioner Stevens will participate in the virtual non-attainment area air pollution mitigation enterprise meeting. From 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., Commissioner Stevens may attend the Fort Collins Urban Renewal Authority Board meeting. It's a hybrid meeting. In person, it will be at City Hall at 300 LaPorte Avenue in Fort Collins, or virtually via Zoom. From 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., Commissioner Shattuck McNally may attend the Open Lands Advisory Board meeting at the Horsetooth Area Information Center at 4200 West County Road 38E in Fort Collins. On Friday, October 25th, from 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m., Commissioner Stevens may participate in the virtual State Human Services Trails Executive Steering Committee meeting. From 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Commissioners will attend the 2024 Veterans Stand Down event at the First Presbyterian Church at 531 South College Avenue in Fort Collins. From 12 p.m. to 2 p.m., Commissioners Cavalas and Shattuck McNally may participate in the Virtual Counties and Commissioners Acting Together Housing Committee 2025 Planning Meeting. On Saturday, October 26th, from 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m., Commissioners will host a Loveland Public Budget Meeting at the Loveland Public Library at 300 North Adams Avenue in Loveland.
Thank you. Colleagues, any feedback, changes? Yeah, Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
Thank you, Sarah, as always, and Melissa and Brenda. I know you guys do a lot of work on our schedule. Also on Thursday, October 24th, I am participating in that panel for Fire Forest up at the DU Mountain Campus with the Coalition for Poudre Watershed, Milco Fireshed, and others, and the film's documentary photographer or videographer. And so that will be, I'll be leaving from OLAB to go up there. And then, I don't know if you mentioned the Big Thompson Watershed. Did you mention that? Okay, sorry. The what?
It's at the top. Just
Oh, okay, thanks. I wasn't sure if I heard it. And then on the 25th, oh, it is on there. Okay, I appreciate it. That's all I had. Sorry, just thank you. My brain obviously is not hearing things today.
Thank you. Commissioner Stevens.
Yeah, I have a couple things. So first of all, there may be a ribbon cutting for the Mobility Hub on Tuesday, October 22nd. They were at 11 a.m. So that I may have to leave this meeting a little early to do that with CDOT. And then the only other thing is that it's likely that the meeting, the NAPME meeting, Non-Attainment Area Air Pollution Mitigation Enterprise meeting, will not be held on the 24th and will be instead held on the 31st. So I will let you know, but it looks like it's CDOT staff is not available on the 24th, so I will know for sure, hopefully in the next couple days. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. So the only things I would bring to your attention, one is the on Wednesday, October 23rd. Technically, we're not having an Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Advisory Board meeting. Folks are being directed to attend an event, I believe, at the Museum of Discovery, and so we probably should have that adjusted. And that's from 4 to 7 at the Museum of Discovery, and it's there's more information. I don't have it in front of me. I just wanted to do that or offer that. Also, that day, I don't know if we list these, but I will be the guest of the Sertoma Club at 12 to 1 and talk about whatever it is they want me to talk about. And then the only other thing, the Veterans Stand Down event at First Presbyterian Church, it is in our calendar from 8 a.m. to 4:30. I thought it was mostly through the morning. We might want to get the times more accurate. I didn't know it was an all-day thing. And then, of course, we're not going to be there. I think we'll do our best to stop in and connect with folks a little bit. That's all. Thank you. Moving on. Oh, consent agenda. Is that right? Yeah. I wrote all these notes on my agenda, and I can't read what's before me. Okay, consent agenda, administrative, routine things. All the information is on the website if you're interested in reading the details of all the agreements and the liquor license approvals and all the other fun stuff. So I typically go through this a bit quickly. And there is one thing on here that, well, it's all important, but there is one thing that we might highlight a little bit more. and then we'll generally offer a motion. I'll ask that of Commissioner Stevens to approve the consent agenda. So moving right along, the first item on the consent agenda for today, Tuesday, October 15th, 2024, is a contract amendment number 4, 25 IBEH 193641. This is to update the fiscal year 2025 grant funding for substance abuse and mental health treatment in the Larimer County Jail. So this is an amendment. The terms are July 1 of this year. This coincides with the state fiscal year, and June 30th of 2025. The county, the sheriff's office, and the Colorado Department of Human Services Behavioral Health Administration. The dollar amount is approximately $771,000. Next, we have deeds, deed of conservation easement, Prairie Ridge Addition, submitted by our engineering folks. This conservation easement to be held by the county is a requirement of the intergovernmental agreement IGA concerning the Prairie Ridge Addition, dated October 2nd of this year. The conveyance of the easement to the county is also a requirement of the Great Outdoors Colorado grant award supporting the city of Loveland and the city of Fort Collins. It's a 140-acre property. In addition to meeting these requirements, the easement will protect the property's significant public benefits, including public recreational access and conservation values in perpetuity. That's that. Moving on to liquor licenses. The first one is a special event liquor permit, 6% for a fundraiser for Grace Village, which is otherwise known as the Wellington Community Services Center up there in Wellington. I guess they're now able to have adult beverages as long as they're below 6%. Next, we have liquor license renewal. This is a Beaver Meadows Resort Ranch, license type hotel and restaurant with optional premise, approval, and issuance. Moving on to miscellaneous. Let's see. Scope of work, FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Administration, Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities BRIC Grant and the Hazard Mitigation Plan Update submitted by our Office of Emergency Management. We were advised by the Colorado Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Management that our application for funding through the FEMA Building Permit Resilient Infrastructure and Communities, otherwise known as BRIC, B-R-I-C, that's a bit easier to say. So we're getting an award, grant award. This grant is about $200,000 of funding at 75% federal share for purposes of updating the multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan, and this is regarding the scope of work and so forth. Number 2, designation, and this is also related, of authorized representative FEMA BRIC grant and hazard mitigation plan update submitted by our Office of Emergency Management. And then this is just designating someone who is an authorized representative to engage in these matters and sign documents. Number 3, Larimer County Natural Resources Parks Advisory Board update to their bylaws. We've been doing this with all the various boards and commissions. So that's what that one is all about. Number 4, the next 2 are stipulations. The first one is for tax year 2024. The stipulation is an agreed upon adjustment of the property values. And this is Larimer County and FDC Office LLC. The second one is also for the same tax year, this tax year 2024. This is with, and I'm not going to get the pronunciation correct, but the county and Baoguang, Wang, and Shio Wang, their organization there. Next, we move on to resolutions. First is findings and resolution denying the Boondocks exemption and appeal. So this is how we officially document the decision that was made, in this case, at a public hearing on July 22nd, 2024. They were asking for an exemption from the land division process to create two legal lots and adjust the minimum lot size requirements. That was denied. Number two, findings and resolution, approving the Cecil sign appeal. And so that was approved. Leave it at that. Number three, and finally, resolution in support of the proposed 0.15% sales and use tax for transportation in Larimer County. So there is a resolution. By this action, we're formally approving that. And that is the last item, which is on the consent agenda. Do either of my commissioner colleagues wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? Do either of my commissioner colleagues want to say a little bit about the resolution in support of the sales and use tax? I'll just say that, did you, Commissioner?
Yeah, I'll just say that, the board is in support of the sales and use tax for transportation. We cannot fund our transportation through our general fund, and we do not receive enough dollars through property tax and other fees to be able to really take care of the roads that we have. Our community is growing. We have roads that are older that need to be taken care of. We have roads that might need to be expanded, and we have a lot of safety needs in our community. And so we don't take this lightly as a board to approve a tax for the ballot. We've considered what we can do, but there are just a lot of needs at this point, and costs are kind of skyrocketing in many ways. Many costs have doubled in taking care of roads. And so this is something we feel we need to be able to accommodate our growing community. We want to make sure that people have the ability to commute and that our roads aren't congested and that they're safe and that we have, expanded shoulders so people can, bike and use other forms of transportation. So this will really accommodate like I said, our growing community, and certainly the safety issues were, when we did polling throughout the community, safety was one of the big concerns that people had. And so we definitely want to address that. We want people to feel safe on our roads and be able to commute and go to places around the county. A lot of people in our municipalities not only use these roads for commuting, but use these roads for recreating. So think about some of the beloved spaces that we have in our community, like Horsetooth or Carter Lake. I mean, you're on county roads when you're accessing those beautiful recreational opportunities. And so we understand that residents are struggling right now, and that's why we've tried to ask for what we think is a very modest tax, 0.15%. But I think that people will see good outcomes from this tax, and we've included some of the roads that we would be working on should this tax pass. So just wanted this is just our way of saying that we are supportive of this, and we hope the community will consider this carefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That passes 3-0. We make our position in support of this proposed 0.15%, 15 cents on a $100 purchase, exempting groceries. We make our support official. As elected folks, we can do that. Our staff can only provide objective information, and there is a lot of good information about this on the website. Great. Well done. Moving on. My goodness, we would like to welcome our sheriff, and we're very lucky that he took the time to sit through some of this and learn a few things. And he's here to provide us an update on a topic that we have been hearing from various residents in our community. And so thank you so much, Sheriff. If you would be kind enough to introduce yourself, that would be great.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioners, Assistant County Manager people of Larimer County. I'm John Feyen. I'm very fortunate and had the opportunity to serve as your sheriff for Larimer County. So in a conversation with the assistant county manager the other day, I realize many of you, just like I, are getting inquiries from our constituents about why is there no fire ban, why is no fire restrictions, it's dry. And so we thought that it would be prudent to have a quick conversation about the things that I look at, or that we look at the Office of Sheriff. Now, traditionally, the commissioners are the ones, the boards of county commissioners are the ones who can agree for fire restrictions or fire bans, but typically in the past, it's been on the recommendation of the Office of Sheriff on whether those are instituted or not. So I wanted to give you a brief glimpse into some of the things that I look at on a weekly basis from my staff who provides that to me. So Sarah? So there's a lot of data that we're going to look at here. And because we want to be data driven, because I'm sure even during the times of when the fire bans and restrictions, actually fire restrictions, we've never had a fire ban so far this year, but a fire restriction. I was getting many emails from folks about how it was killing the kids' camping trips because they couldn't have their s'mores and those kinds of things. So it's both sides. One of the first things we look at is what is the drought conditions in Larimer County. So as you can see, this is data from about 10 days ago. I did not have the data from this week. So I get the data every Monday that I look at to put into the slide presentation. But we have 3% of severe drought. Most of it's moderate drought. There is no place in Larimer County where we have an abundance of water. So we are always in a dry condition. So that's one of the factors that we look at when we start doing this. Sarah, please. We also look at, and I'm going to give you a lot of acronyms, energy release components, and I'm going to give you quick definitions of what those are. Basically, an energy release component it's a scale of 0 to 100, but it's the amount of BTUs that is released in a square foot of Forest Service or grasslands. So it's amount of energy. It's based upon the amount of deadfall, the amount of fuels that are in the area. But as you can see, in these areas, our energy release components are significantly high throughout the foothills and even on the plains of Larimer County. Sarah? We also look at what is the potential for fire potential. In each one of these graphs, I know they're awfully small for you to see, represent a single day. And because the weather patterns change with high pressures, low pressures, temperature gradients. And so throughout the country, what are our significant fire potentials for fire spread for the coming week is what we look at. And so this is for the period of October 3rd through October 10th is what we're looking at. And as you can see, we look at all of that. Now, again, thankfully, nothing in Colorado is in the red or even in the orange during that period, but that does not mean that there is not a risk that exists as well. Sarah, please. We also look at the temperature outlook. Now, temperature is an important thing because it actually drives relative humidity. And we'll talk about relative humidity here in a little bit, but that's a significant factor for us. In some ways, more so than even precipitation is. While precipitation is important to us, we're going to talk about fuel loads. We're going to talk about 1 hour fuels, 10-hour fuels, 100-hour fuels, and 1,000-hour fuels, just real briefly, okay? But precipitation is not as big a factor as you may think it is. It's more about the temperature. Sarah? At the very end, this is what the final data point that I look at. This is kind of the compilation of everything. And what we'll do is we'll go through this. So there's 3 specific areas in Larimer County that I look at, topography areas, the plains, the foothills, and then the mountain areas or the eastern divide. And you can see, if you go down to the middle section there, where it says representative location, the plains, the National Fire Danger Rating System that they're looking at significantly for the plains is what they call the spread component. And so think about your grasslands, Pawnee Buttes areas, this area where there's dryland pasture grasses. And what a spread component is based upon the topography, the fuel loads, your typical prevailing winds, is how fast a flame front will move. How fast can it be pushed from your property to my property so that we have to get ahead of it. The weather station we measure that at is at Buckeye. And then it gives you, and we'll come back to those here in a second, were different categories, restrictions, and bans. The foothills is that energy release component that we look at, the amount of BTUs in a square foot of forest area and how much energy is contained in that. So the foothills, we're looking at the communities of Red Feather, Redstone, and Estes Park. And in the eastern divide, the mountainous areas, we're also looking at the ERC, the energy release component. So Corral Creek up in the national park and in Pickle Gulch. So to the right of there, we look at what are the thresholds. So for restriction and ban for the plains, restriction or ban in the foothills, restriction or ban in the east divide, here's our trigger points. So if the spread component or the ERC is above those criteria, then that will trigger either a restriction or a ban recommendation as one of the categories. The KBDI is, I had to look it up myself. It's the Keach-Byram Drought Index. Okay, so what that looks at, it's a scale of 0 to 100. And it looks at the amount of fuel load in your 100-hour and your 1,000-hour fuels, as well as the fire potential for the topsoil 8 inches down under the ground. So for an example, even during the Alexander Mountain fire when we were up on Storm Mountain, there was a community member who had put mulch to even out the walkway so that they could get from where they parked their car to their driveway. And you've all been hiking, right? You know the valleys and the gullies, even on the path that you get. Well, they'd evened all of that out. So our firefighters found that the top part of that mulch was not burning, but 5 inches down, there was smoldering flame that was creeping along that pathway. So they had to dig all of that out. So the KBDI actually looks at what is the fire potential from topsoil all the way to 8 inches down. If it's a 0, it means it's saturated. If it's 800, which is the top of the scale, it is very, very dry, significantly dry. We look at the 1,000-hour fuels. So the 1,000-hour fuels now these are typically fuels that are think logs that are 3 inches or larger, and you're looking at the moisture content. And they're called 1,000-hour fuels not because they burn for 1,000 hours, but because they're so large, it takes about 1,000 hours of moisture or dryness to change their percentage of moisture within their fuel systems. So less than 12%, and you're going to see where we're, like if you look up the foothills now at the top where it says average 1,000 hours, we're at 12%. So we're right at, for foothills, that trigger point. If we would drop to 11%, that would trigger a recommendation in that box for restriction. If the East Divide dropped down to, it would also start triggering some of that. So that's important. That's important to us. Now understand, when you go to Lowe's or you go to Home Depot and you buy a 2x4, you're looking at a moisture content typically of 10 to 14%. So that gives you kind of like a real life example of what that moisture is looking like. Continuing across in that middle portion there, we talked about the KBDI, we talked about the 1,000-hour fuels. Now we talk about preparedness level, and this is a backwards scale. So 1 is better than 5, and it's a 5-point scale. So if we're at 1 and we look at the Fort Collins regional area as well as the Rocky Mountain regional area, then 1 is good, 5 is not good. So like when we came to you during the Alexander Mountain fire, we were at a 5. We couldn't handle any more starts with the resources that we had here in Larimer County or in northern Colorado. Nationally, we were also at a 5 because a lot of the firefighting resources were Oregon, Washington, Montana, Idaho, fighting fires as well. And then we look at the weather trend, and we showed you the weather trend just a little bit ago. So we take all of these together, and at the very bottom it says, if there are only 0 to 3 of these criteria, and we look at it not as a whole, we look at each individual area. So I read the plains at the very, very top, and I go, okay, I have 1 red area in the plain and 1 yellow area. So my drought index is high, and my weather trend is yellow. Well, that doesn't get me into a trigger point for the plains. Foothills, I have 2 red and a yellow. And again, that doesn't get me into a trigger point for either a restriction or a ban. And then on the East Divide, again, I have a yellow, a red, and another yellow. So at this point, nothing, even though we are dry, Nothing in here triggers the recommendation for either a restriction or a ban based upon the data that we are collecting from the National Fire Management Area. And we also takes into account, right? I mean, I get it. Some places, your home can be very wet, your home could be very dry. There is that discontinuity between perceptions of what that looks like. That's why we try to do the data that is provided to us. So let's talk about relative humidity real quickly. We're getting a lot of those conversations. It's a beautiful fall. Fall is finally struck in Colorado, right? It's those azure blue skies, warm temperatures during the daytime, but you're getting those nighttime temperatures that are in the 30s and the 40s up in the mountains. As the temperature drops, the relative humidity goes up, and that is a huge factor in what we call the probability of ignition. So a probability of ignition is a percentage. If I took basically a lit match and just dropped it on the forest floor or dropped it on the grasslands, what's the probability that will create a fire that needs suppression? It's measured on 0 to 100%. During the Alexander Mountain fires, we were having days where the probability of ignition were in the 95 to the 99th percentile. So just dropping the cigarette out the window, dropping the match, a spark from a train, a spark from a car would have had a 95% probability of starting a fire. We are not seeing that currently because of our our high relative humidities due to our low temperatures that we're seeing at night. Now, the temperature goes up during the daytime, that changes, but it's not changing to the degree we were seeing in the summertime. So we're very, very thankful for that. Let's see. Oh, last 2 points. So let's go back and talk about, I know you all know this, right? Even fire restrictions and fire bans, Forest Service has been in a fire restriction since before July 4th. They're not the panacea that some people think they are. Unfortunately, Alexander Mountain Fire started on Forest Service land during the time of a restriction, but also due to a criminal act. Even the Pearl Fire, which, while I'm not ready to speak about fully in public, was the cause of the Pearl Fire started on private land, but it was due to an act that would not have been prevented by any fire restrictions we would have had in place. So even if we put fire restrictions, fire bans in place, I don't want people to think who may be watching that is going to solve all of our problem. And the only danger that we may face from forest fires is due to lightning strikes, because that's just not the case. I'm going to pause and stop and answer questions if I may, please.
Thank you very much, Sheriff. Colleagues, do you have any questions or feedback? Commissioner Shaddock McNally.
Thank you for all this information. I know we usually, when you come and present when things are starting to look like they should head towards restrictions or a full ban, can you explain? Because we are hearing from a lot of folks who are concerned, especially for it to start up in a very dry area, which we have some areas that are drier and coming, towards populated areas. Other counties have different restrictions or different areas. Can you maybe help expand a little bit more on our science? I don't know if everyone uses the same indices and data, so it seems like we use quite a few that are constantly changing. And so I was curious if you could just expand on that a little bit more for the public when we have surrounding counties that do things, because that's what we'll hear is like, well, these guys are doing it. Why, so I'm just curious if you wouldn't mind expanding on that a little bit more.
And unfortunately, so I can speak to, these are the only indices that we've used since I've been in office for the last 20 months. So we've not changed even though the indices may change, the nature of the indices that we use to make that determination have been constant for that time. And even with my predecessor, I believe they're the same thing. Unfortunately, Commissioner, I cannot speak to what Weld County uses, what Boulder County uses, or Jackson County uses. I don't know if they're using the same indices, no indices, more robust ones. I just don't have that information. I apologize.
No, I appreciate that. But it would be maybe a true statement that maybe they might be using different things or have different methods or different. It could be.
It could be, absolutely. I mean, every community is unique, which is why they have a different board of county commissioners, a different sheriff. And so every community is driven by different factors. And so absolutely, it's totally possible that they may have a whole litany of other ones. They may have none whatsoever.
Thank you. And I know this to be a true statement, but maybe you could just state it publicly, that you have been very Justin Whitesell have been very partner and collaborative and have been very informative or contacting us if changes have started to have changes or directions heading a certain way. You guys have asked to get right in front of us to bring up these concerns and questions. And my experience is you've always been able to be very responsive to questions we have when we do have constituents concerned. I feel that is a true statement. And would you feel that would you feel like we've been trying to have this open dialogue and conversation? Because overall, we care about all of our whole county, and we care about this. That's why when we do have concerns, we talk about that. And I hope that you feel the same way, that we've been trying to have this open dialogue this whole season, because I can understand why people maybe feel a little trepidation with having two fires and seeing other fires. And then when in just the last few years, anytime there's smoke in the air, people are like, is there a fire? And should I be concerned? So I'm just curious. I hope you feel the same way, that we've been trying to really I feel like we have good conversations and good dialogue. And I'm hoping that you feel the same as we're asking these questions. And I know from my end, I feel like you guys have been very responsive to our concerns or questions. So.
Well, I appreciate that, Commissioner, and I do feel the same way. I mean, it's a partnership. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, I can make the recommendation, but it's the Board of County Commissioners that will implement either a restriction or a fire ban. And I do truly believe that all of us have the same goals, and that's the preservation of life and property, as well as our ecology and our beautiful Larimer County, all 2,640 square miles of it. So it could not do it without all of you. So it behooves me to communicate and answer those questions. Nor do I think, especially when historically, now I suppose the Board of County Commissioners could implement a ban or restriction without the input of the Office of Sheriff, but that's not the way it's been historically. And so I don't feel it's fair for you to have to answer to my recommendations either. So when you're getting emails from constituents who say, Commissioners, why aren't you doing this? Don't you know how dry it is? I think it's perfectly appropriate for you to go, well, the sheriff needs to make that recommendation because that's the truth. But yes, the collaboration, the partnership, we could not do it alone. I think we all serve the same goal, and that's the citizens of Larimer County.
Thank you. Commissioner Stevens, any thoughts?
Yeah, so thank you for bringing this forward. We always say that we want to make data-driven decisions, and so I think it's important to stick with that. But I think that can be confusing to residents. When you explain this, do you feel like that people feel a little sense of relief, understanding a little bit more about how this works, or people sometimes still want the ban regardless?
I think it's the latter,
okay,
because I think there's a difference between the head and the heart, right?
Sure.
The science will tell me, and as we just talked about, the science can be confusing when you talk about what's a 1,000-hour fuel and what's a spread component and all of those different things. And so for some folks, it's like, especially when I have the opportunity to study them and look at them and dig into more details, even then it can be a little bit confusing to me. Somebody at a community meeting who's having those conversations, who's hearing them for the first time, I don't expect them to know them unless they live in that world, right? And the knowledge is fine, and that helps a little bit perhaps, but it's my home in Crystal Lakes, it's my home in Glen Haven, it's my home in Pinewood Springs, right? And I've invested my family's future and my economic future into these homes, and so there's a huge emotional component that sometimes the science won't answer, I believe.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that. And I do understand that. And I think that if people have experienced it, the tensions the anxiety kind of runs high for sure. Absolutely. For folks. But I also think in a number of ways, we're always challenged with, balancing freedoms and safety, right? It's a big motif in the work that we do. And so, that's why we rely on the science, because I think that helps us make those better decisions around those kind of issues where there's people on both sides. People want to be able to camp and do some of the things that they want to do. So I appreciate you bringing this forward. I think it's just, really good for the community to sort of understand that there's a lot of things at play when we make that decision. Just because it seems dry doesn't mean that the conditions are so ripe for a fire. So we appreciate you coming forward again to bring this information. We've seen this information before, But I think it's just good to remind the public that that we're not making these decisions arbitrarily. That we're really relying on the science to guide our decisions, and that should things change, we would definitely, for the worse, we would definitely. But I think the cooler nights are an important factor too, and it's nice to see those in the fall. So thank you very much.
And Commissioner, if I may, what part of the emotional part of it? Truly, things have changed. The landscape has changed in the last 4 years since we had Cameron Peak, at multiple levels, including this one, right? Because of Cameron Peak and the things that we saw at Cameron Peak, this board and the sheriff's office have invested more heavily in firefighter resources, the initial attack module. So we're very, very quick with our partners, the volunteer fire departments, to address the fires, because every forest fire of hundreds of thousands of acres turns into a tree on fire or a 1 acre fire. And so due to that investment in those resources from yourselves and from us, we're quicker to respond to those things. And also at the state level, we didn't have aerial resources from the Division of Fire Prevention and Control back in when Cameron Peak started. We have that now. And as the commissioners are aware, we are very sensitive to that, and we're very quick to use aerial resources when we need to. So we don't want your house to burn down either.
Right. No, and I thank you for reminding folks about that. We are. That's you act quickly when that happens, and you have more resources than you've ever had before. So thank you.
Thank you, colleagues. And I'd like to offer a couple of questions and comment or two, and then I believe Commissioner Shattuck McNally wants to add something. What about wind? How do you take that into consideration? There was on the radio this morning, our state climatologist was talking about how we've had the second hottest September, and we're seeing a trend in terms of fall being hot and dry. And the only saving grace, according to what I heard on the radio, was that the wind has not been excessive. So I'm curious. I didn't see that in your matrix. How do you take into consideration wind and its implications?
So we typically, this doesn't sound bad, we don't typically take wind into consideration when I'm making a restriction or a ban. So the last thing I want to do too is go and come to you on a daily basis or a weekly basis and say, okay, we have a red flag warning 2 of the next 7 days, so we need restrictions in place, but we don't see them the following week, so we need the restrictions to go away. Because that's only going to be confusing to folks. Can we have a barbecue or can we not have a barbecue? What we do, and you're absolutely right, wind is not a component of this just because of the inaccuracies and the inconsistencies of pressure gradients, which is what drives the wind, a low pressure system into a high pressure system or vice versa. However, we all know that have a fire and then have a wind come up, and now your spread component it drives it more, right? But unfortunately, due to that inconsistency or the inability to predict what the winds are going to be 6 or 7 days from now, or what the wind trends are going to be a month from now, make it harder to incorporate that factor into what we just looked at. Now, what we do is when we get red flag warnings, and again, due to the support that we've received from the commissioners and our emphasis on that emergency services, we hire a lot of extra firefighters during the course of the summertime at the sheriff's office, our emergency services division, our initial attack module. So we were joking with them the other day, but what we do is we stage them. We know that there's a red flag warning, it's going to hit this part of the county, and so we will bring 8 of them in on whatever day it is, even on the weekend, and we'll stage them in Red Feather, Crystal Lakes, Glen Haven, again, so that if we do get into an ignition somewhere, they're on scene quickly before the wind can drive it too far.
Thank you. Just another question here,
Please.
maybe 2. But regarding fire restrictions and fire bans, could you quickly explain the difference related to that? When was the last time we actually did a full-out ban? I can't recall. And I think related to what I'm bringing up, Sheriff, hopefully you're tracking this, and that is how quickly can your shop pivot? Because ultimately you have to come to us and we approve whatever you recommend for the most part. So how quickly can you pivot? What is the difference between restrictions and fire bans when was the last time we had a ban? And enforcement, you spoke to that earlier. That's a tough one.
No, that's a great question. So restrictions and so let's talk about the ban, right? Basically, a ban, you can't have an outdoor fire at all. There's nothing. I mean, it's banned. Restrictions means there are certain areas where you can do things. We talked about, like during Alexander Mountain Fire, you can still have outdoor barbecue grills. You could still have outdoor fires, but it basically had to be controlled by an on-off switch. So turn your propane tank off, it goes off. So wood burning fires were prohibited, those kinds of things. Charcoal briquettes were prohibited. Now you can have a less of a restriction, and that's kind of what the Forest Service has had all summer, where you can't just make a rock fire ring and have a fire. But if you're in a campground, a Forest Service approved campground, and they have one of those metal approved camp fire rings, then you could have a fire in those. And so it just depends on what structures, when I say structures, not homes, but like how are you, is it a brick fireplace? Is it a metal fire or outdoor fire ring? Is it a rock fire ring? So you can do a lot of those kind of nuanced changes.
And it's very specific in the resolutions and the code. I'm just wondering, do you happen to know when was the last time we actually banned fires? Because people, when they reach out to us, say, "Why don't you have a fire ban?"
Yeah, I cannot give you a date.
I don't think so.
Not my recollection either.
And what about enforcement? We were camping up at Bel Air Campground back in August. There were fire restrictions, and folks in 3 adjacent campgrounds were, they had campfires going within the.
Absolutely. So here's one of the tricky parts, right? Bel Air Campground's a Forest Service campground.
Well,
we would expect the Forest Service to enforce those because you have not imposed that restriction. So I cannot write a Forest Service ticket without a Larimer County ban as well.
Well, and even when we brought that up at the Red Feather Lakes meeting a month or so ago, there is the campground host. And apparently, I wasn't sure of this, they have a responsibility if they see that, because there were signs by the bathrooms and everything else,
right.
You can't do this. They have a responsibility to talk to people about it, but I don't know if this campground host was actually doing that.
And nor do I.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, enough said. I guess in closing, thank you so much, of course. And one thing I'd like you to consider, I don't have a specific ask, I wish I did. All the matrix and the numbers you show us and the thresholds and all that, that's all well and good. But I wonder if there's a way, and maybe you're already doing this on the website, is to translate that into a way that people can understand it. Because I've seen that time, for the last 6 years, and I still don't fully understand it. So I wonder if there's a way to translate some of that into information that folks can relate to. And how do we be as proactive as we can be to let people know periodically this, we're on this, we're paying attention. So I'd like you to at least give that some thought, sir.
It's an amazing recommendation. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Well, yes, Commissioner, please. Sorry. Talk to me.
So this can be a side conversation, Sheriff. I know I might be throwing you a curveball here, but I was at the Colorado Wildland Fire Conference a couple of weeks ago, and I know some of the people from your team were there, and there was a lot of residents from Larimer County that attended, and also, state DNR and folks from SS Fire and other folks there. And we had some great presentations from folks who cited the CSU professor who's looking at how we can disrupt fire paths through communities, and he actually is here at CSU, and him and I are going to get together. I didn't get all the information. I didn't get to hear his full presentation, but also I wanted to let you know the Fire Adapted Community Wildfire Partners got rave reviews. I heard from lots of people about that, so appreciate that partnership we have. But and everyone who knows can kind of speak at the Forest Health Council about talking about vapor pressure deficit, which is the amount of air. So I was trying to get some easier way to explain it, because I get kind of geeky about it, but it's basically the amount of air in the water in the air or in trees and stuff that because of the changing climate, the amount of water that trees and plants can get out of the air and the amount in the air is changing and getting drier. And that's why we have these big mega fires and that don't lay down at night and have different fire patterns. And also when we can have higher intensity burns that make the soil so the hydrophobic soils and the burn severity. And so looking at that presentation, looking at some of the changes and conditions, and I can show you some of those slides, and I thought maybe we could talk about that. What are your thoughts about maybe having a conversation about other factors as our climate is changing and shifting? We know it's drying out, and how that conditions is affecting our forests, and up there and talking with the Forest Service and seeing if there's some other things we should think about in forecasting and looking at what this looks like. Because looking at the vapor pressure deficit numbers, they're going to be much higher than they were even for the 2020 years. So I just wanted to kind of share that with you and thought maybe that would be just a nice side conversation to have, because I know we're talking about that and something I'm concerned the more I learn about it. And so I just wanted to kind of share that with you and see if we can have a conversation, because maybe we can meet with that gentleman together. But I know there's a lot of the forests are changing, and so I think that's also something that maybe in the future just to bring into the conversation about forest fires are not going to be the same as they were before. So if you wouldn't mind, I'd love to have a side conversation with you about that sometime. Thank you.
So thank you, Commissioner. Respectfully, I'm understanding that conversation will not happen here, that it'll happen elsewhere. It's a very deep and thoughtful conversation. Are you expecting any kind of response from the sheriff? I'd like to be able to move on.
I'm asking the sheriff if we could, have a conversation later on about
always
this
open
another
to
time.
conversations
Thank you.
to make us.
Thank you. I'm sure. Absolutely. So thank you very much. Hopefully thousands of folks are watching this broadcast. But indeed, if you all can think about how do we translate some of this information so regular folks can understand it better.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Have a nice day, good
Thank
sir.
you. Appreciate all of you.
Okay. Moving right along, we have two discussion items. The first one is a proclamation regarding the subject of ageism. Appreciate that our Human Services folks and our Office of Aging and Adult Services folks are here. Who's Aaron or who's coming up? Oh, you can all come on up. Get some steps in. Thanks, Sheriff.
Good morning. My name is Erin Alt. I'm the program manager for the Larimer County Office on Aging here within Larimer County Human Services. I am joined today by our Human Services Director, Heather O'Hare, our Aging and Adult Services Division Manager, Lori Metz, and our Deputy Division Manager, Katie Stieber. I want to first of all thank you for allowing our team to be here today and for the opportunity to say a few words about ageism awareness. Today we come together to confront a pressing issue that impacts the dignity and well-being of countless individuals in our society, ageism. As we proclaim our commitment to ageism awareness, we must recognize this prejudice not only diminishes the lives of older adults, but also deprives our communities of their invaluable wisdom, experience, and contributions. Ageism presents itself in many ways, through stereotypes that portray older adults as frail, forgetful, or out of touch. These harmful narratives create a divide that isolates and marginalizes individuals simply because of their age. When we dismiss older adults as incapable, or irrelevant, we fail to see the rich tapestry of life experiences they possess, the knowledge they can share, and the resilience they have demonstrated throughout their lives. Consider the vast array of talents and skills found in our older population. They have navigated tough challenges, built families and businesses, contributed to their communities, and shaped our society in profound ways. Yet, too often, they face barriers in employment, healthcare, and social engagement. Discrimination based on age can lead to feelings of invisibility and worthlessness, causing many to withdraw from active participation within their communities. As we raise awareness about ageism today, it is imperative that we advocate for policies and practices that honor the contributions of older adults. This includes promoting intergenerational interactions where young and older generations can learn from each other, and fostering environments that encourage older adults to remain active and engaged in all aspects of life. We must challenge the stereotypes that perpetuate ageism. Let us celebrate the achievements of older adults, whether they are mentoring the next generation, volunteering their time, or pursuing new interests that enrich their lives and those around them. Their stories are not just the narratives of aging. They are powerful reminders of resiliency, adaptability, and the ongoing capacity for growth. Today, I call upon each one of us to take action. Speak out against ageist attitudes in your workplace, families, and communities. Advocate for inclusive policies that provide equal opportunities for older adults in employment and healthcare. Engage in conversations that highlight the value of older individuals and work to dismantle the barriers that they face. By standing together against ageism, we can cultivate a culture that embraces and respects individuals of all ages. Let us declare that age is not a limitation, but a domain of rich potential and experience. Together, we can create a society where older adults are seen, heard, and celebrated. So thank you for your commitment to this important cause and the older adults in Larimer County. As always, Commissioner Kafalis, Shattuck McNally, and Stevens, we appreciate your time, your proclamation, and your commitment to the aging adults of Larimer County.
Thank you very much, Erin. Well done. I see that you're accompanied by three of your colleagues. Do any of those folks wish to offer some words on this topic?
I don't believe so.
Well, then I guess they're feeling a bit shy today, and although we will do a photo op and we'll have to ask folks to come on up. So with that, what I'd like to do is ask Commissioner Shattuck McNally to read the proclamation, offer the motion, please, and then if we have comments, we can certainly do that. Then we'll pause and take a picture.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner, please.
Thank you all. Thank you, Erin, for being here today, and all of you. I will be reading the 2024 Ageism Awareness Day Proclamation. Whereas ageism refers to the stereotypes, how we think, prejudice, how we feel, and discrimination, how we act, towards others based on age. And whereas there is estimated to be over 84,000 older adults in Larimer County age 60 and beyond who are impacted by ageism. And whereas ageism towards older adults affects their health and longevity, financial well-being, and the economy of Larimer County. And whereas preventing ageism in education, employment, housing, culture, and healthcare will benefit all. And whereas preventing ageism in education, employment, I think that's there twice, so I'll skip that one. Whereas recognizing that it is up to all of us to ensure that older adults are respected and portrayed as capable, competent, effective, and valued in all areas of society. And whereas ageism awareness and preventing ageism is beneficial to the community of Larimer County by improving quality of life within Larimer County. Now, therefore, the Board of County Commissioners of Larimer County hereby proclaim October 15th, 2024 as Ageism Awareness Day, dated this day, October 15th, 2024. The Board of County Commissioners. Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion. I move to approve the proclamation declaring October 15th, 2024 as Age Awareness Day. And if you would like, I will go ahead and do my comments now real quick.
Yes, I'd like to pivot and go with Commissioner Stevens. Commissioner Stevens, do you have any comments or questions you'd like to raise? And then we'll certainly come back to you, and I'll see if I have anything to add.
Yeah. So, Aaron, I love that we're doing this proclamation. And can you talk about anything that you think that we can really do to make sure that we, are celebrating the people in our community and some of the things that you do in your office to make sure that happens?
That's a great question, and thank you. I think it's so important for us just to really be thinking about the older adults and not putting them in an under marginalized group. And if there are policies and employment opportunities, just that we are thinking about everyone across the age span and just being fair. The Office on Aging, we are the county's and the region's area agency on aging, and we do our best with many programs and collaborations with community partners, really to give opportunities for older adults to be engaged, if that's in employment or volunteer. And we also, of course, we really strive to keep folks in their home or communities of choice. That's really what the Older Americans Act stands for. We support the older adults and caregivers. So yeah, I think just being aware and when policies and recommendations come across your desk, that you're just thinking of all of the adults in Larimer County.
Yeah. Well, thank you. We know this group is growing steadily in our county, and at one point was called like the silver tsunami, that we're going to have a lot of older adults in our community. We certainly have a lot to learn. We had a neighbor in my cul-de-sac who, had served in World War II. And, it was so beneficial for my kids to kind of hear those firsthand stories of her being a nurse during World War II. And, it just really was a delight that we called her Miss Polly, was part of our lives, right? I mean, it was in a way, she served as like a de facto grandma for the whole cul-de-sac. But she was, lively and engaged, and she took care of her yard. And it's great to grow up in those intergenerational kind of community settings. And so you're right. I think keeping people in their home is a really important piece of that. I also just, as we're thinking about, how to combat ageism, I just want to lift up all the people and honor all the people who are serving as election judges and working on our elections. A lot of people who have retired are working tirelessly on our elections. We have to hire about 800 people to make sure our elections happen in Larimer County, and a large part of those folks are older adults that are, really serving our community in a way that is very beneficial to all of us. And so, really want to say that there's please acknowledge people when you're voting and when you're out in the community, to make sure that we're preventing ageism. I think there's things in place to prevent ageism as far as the workplace, but we know that it's not just confined to the workplace. And so I think that it's a good reminder that we need to honor people, be careful of the language that we use, and really have a respect for one another. So I thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Shattuck McNally, please.
Thanks again for everyone being here today. Serving on the Office on Aging Advisory Council for a long time and being caregiver to my grandparents, my parents, and starting with my daughter, the Generation Connect Intergenerational Conversations and Project in 2017, and kind of honoring, my dad, and trying to make sure we think about older adults and folks in our communities that are isolated and maybe experiencing loneliness, and how important it is, even when we're gathering as families, to look at our relatives and talk to them and actually put down our devices and engage and ask about their life stories, and having authentic conversations around the holidays coming up. I encourage everyone to ask for that favorite recipe, to engage, and just to honor and think about our family members as well as our neighbors and friends. We need to change the narrative still in this community. And I know that is actually a group calling Changing the Narrative, and it's something that I still get emails on, and the work that we try to do, bringing youth together with older adults and having conversations and doing service projects. And I think that was really meaningful for a lot of the youth to say, wow, this guy I was working with, I asked him a question what he did, and he used to be a Russian spy. And he was, like, that is so cool. And so it's just really important to understand that everyone has a story and has contributed, and everyone has value and matters. and it's really important that we think about ourselves and educate ourselves about what's out in the into the public, and we look at social media and how it's portrayed in the in commercials or even in some of our ads, and just thinking about how we need to be aware of that and pushing back when there's stereotypes or ageism in those things, and also just recognize, as Commissioner Stevens stated, the strengths and contributions before and now. There's a lot of folks who, with retirement, choose to give back and continue to do meaningful work in ways that are unpaid or maybe paid, that really bring value to our community, but also bring a lot of joy to their lives. And they help a lot in our community, either as caregivers or helping deliver Meals on Wheels and those things. And I think we really have to encourage all of our colleagues across political spectrums in our elected bodies to adopt and look at age inclusive practices and how we do that, even businesses, how we can encourage that within our own sphere, but others, and how important it is. We do have a lot of opportunities. There's jobs that are open that older adults would be really wonderful contributors in the workforce and that want to do that. And so I think that's important that we push and help with that that kind of policies. Also, ageism is a prejudice against our future selves. So we have to think about how we change that narrative, because, I'm not getting younger, and this will, impact all of us. And I think also we've seen that in the national politics of last year, which I was really alarmed to see the narratives and the comments and the assumptions and the mocking. And it's not okay for us to accept that at all, because it impacts everyone. Across the country, when we allow those stereotypes and that kind of conversation to keep going forward, and that was disheartening to me to see a lot of that. Also, we just need to understand that ageism also compounds all other isms. There's a lot of isms in our community, and this one is sometimes one that seems to be. I don't want to say accepted, but just one that's not called out as much. And we need to, because it compounds all the other isms out there. And I think we need to, as we really keep talking about everyone deserves to age in place with dignity and grace, how they choose, and to support those caregivers and folks who help support those folks as they choose to, how they choose to age. And so aging is a beautiful, wonderful thing. People have lived full lives and continue to live full lives no matter what their age is, and we just need to celebrate and support any kind of organization and folks who support that process, because we all go through it. It's something we all share, and we all should celebrate that and value what a wonderful time in life. From birth to from what's that come from something to that to grades or twos or something, that all stages of life should be honored and thought and be thoughtful and be celebrated and supported. So, because it is our great country is built on a lot of hard work from those who came before us, and we need to make sure we remember that and reflect on that and celebrate that. So thank you all for this wonderful proclamation, and appreciate that we get to make sure we bring awareness to this issue. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. I have a question, and then I'll offer a couple of insights, and then we'll see if Lori wants to say anything, if you'd like, of course. My question is, can you say a little bit about the senior access points and also the answers on aging senior resource guides, both hard copies, and how do folks access it, either picking up a hard copy or digitally, and reminding folks that the guides are in at least 2 languages. So could you say a little bit about senior access points and the resource guides and how that benefits folks, or how that might benefit folks?
Absolutely. Thanks for bringing that.
And you can be succinct if you'd like.
Okay. Very good timing. We are actually, the printer is printing last week and this week, the new Answers on Aging resource guide. You can get those by calling the Office on Aging at 970-498-7750. Yes, the new and improved is coming out this week, and we will be circulating them, of course, to all of our county offices and nearly 300 community partners. You can also find it digitally in both Spanish and English on our website, which is larimer.gov/seniors. And Senior Access Points is a collaboration with CSU Extension. They have had amazing volunteers out in the community, setting up brochures and posters and really just driving traffic to the Office on Aging. So that has been a wonderful partnership over the last many years. Did I skip anything?
Yes, thank you. Just a couple of quick comments, and then I think we'll vote on the proclamation. Then we'll do a picture. One is regarding the proclamation. I'm sure we're all struck by the data point: 84,000 older adults in Larimer County, and that has all kinds of implications. Of course, that changing demographic. More and more of us are living older, and certainly with resources like the Office on Aging and some of the things you described in the discussion, whatever we can do to help folks age where they want to age in their community, in their homes, with respect, love, and dignity. That's important. Secondly, on the proclamation, I'm sorry that we missed that there are two whereases that are stated twice, but perhaps we'll let it go, and that'll just remind us that education and prevention and all of that is really, really important. So I'm sorry we missed that. And then the only other, what was I going to say? What else was I going to say? Well, I just, one of our more celebrated elders who would turn 99 on September 27th, Sergeant Jack Thurmond, was Iwo Jima veteran who lives in Loveland and pretty amazing person in his family. So it's great to be able to honor folks like that. And it was a great celebration birthday party at his house. Some of our sheriff's office folks were there, other first responders. And it's kind of neat that over the years, since he was the grand marshal that went at our fair and rodeo back in 2018 or so, 2019, that to develop that friendship with the family and all of that. So I think that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your work. We have a motion before us. Any further discussion, colleagues? Oh, Lori, you want to say anything? I'm sorry. Gosh.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to commend Heather O'Hare and her staff for the good work that they do bringing these proclamations forward. Everyone who comes to speak is very thoughtful in their comments and informative, and I really appreciate the attention to bringing awareness to these various issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. And as one who is approaching 70, I always appreciate it when I'm at a restaurant and somebody actually cards me. That doesn't happen too often. Okay. Motion before us. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0, proclaiming this day as Aging Awareness Day. We will pause for a moment and take picture. And we have the proclamation. Thank you all. Thanks, Sheriff. Thanks for hanging out. Okay, we're back on air. We took a moment for photographs. We just approved the proclamation, an important proclamation regarding Ageism Awareness Day 2024. We have one more discussion item, and that is a resolution to establish the sales tax exemption of manufactured homes, etc. I'll let our colleagues come on up, please, and introduce themselves and provide more detail about the resolution and what's all behind this. And thank you, by the way.
Excuse me. Good morning. My name is Tracy Hines. I'm the sales tax manager for Larimer County. We are here to bring forth a resolution to establish a tax exemption on the sales of manufactured homes, mobile modular homes, teeny homes, or any closed panel system utilized in the construction of a factory build residence structure for your consideration.
Thank you, Tracy.
Hello all, I'm Aaliyah Rodriguez. I'm the Housing Program Manager here at Larimer County. I think we timed this pretty well based on the information that was brought earlier this morning. We heard from our sheriff the diverse landscapes that we have across our county. We heard from the proclamation, the diverse community members that we have across our county. I think it's fitting that we also recognize that the solution to our housing crisis is also diversity in the housing types that we have. So I want to thank the board and county leadership for continuing to investigate creative solutions to housing and to encourage diversity in our housing types. And that's what this sales tax exemption will do. By lowering the cost of manufactured housing, we're encouraging this housing type to be available more throughout our community. And we're also lowering the purchase price, right? So that makes it more accessible to more community members throughout Larimer County. Not just low-income individuals, but moderate income, just across the spectrum. We're providing pathways for opportunity to home ownership. Not just through stick build, not just through single family housing, but through these other unique housing types. So thank you for bringing this forward and considering the resolution and putting this exemption in place for the county.
Thank you, colleagues. We'll open it up to questions, comments. Commissioner Shattuck McNally, do you have any questions or comments from our colleagues?
Not really questions. I think we've kind of looked through this, but I wanted first just to say to Tracy Hines, I really hold you in high regard. Your expertise here, a lot of things with our sales tax and the things you keep an eye on for us at the state level and within potential legislation that would impact our county sales tax has just been extraordinarily helpful over the last few years. I just really want to thank you for all that you do and the expertise. I know your voice has been valuable for our county associations too. I mean, you have provided a lot of resources and feedback that has been very helpful, and I know they hold you in high regard as well. We're very fortunate to have you here at Larimer County. And I just feel like I need to say this. Public needs to understand we have some amazing, amazing staff, and you are one of those staff. We have lots of folks here that are just outstanding. And so I appreciate your work on this in partnership with working with Aaliyah and bringing us the information we needed to evaluate this and look at a data-driven decision as well. And I just want to make sure to express my gratitude to you and how much I hold your thoughts and I really take note when you talk. So I appreciate that. And Aaliyah, just thank you for partnering on this as we look for ways to address housing affordability here in Larimer County. There is no silver bullet. We're trying to tackle this in many ways, or this huge elephant of housing affordability. We're just taking it a bite at a time, trying to devour this huge complex topic. And I just appreciate another opportunity for us to address this in a meaningful way. So that's my only comments. Appreciate you bringing this forward, and very happy to be supporting this today as we vote, and excited that we have another tool in the toolbox for us to address this. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Stevens, your thoughts?
Yeah, just my thanks to Aaliyah and Tracy. You know, as Commissioner Shattuck McNally said, you know, our community's really tasked us with trying to find ways to make housing more affordable. And this is something that we can, you know, do that has an immediate benefit. So, because this is affordable housing for many people, we don't often have traditional affordable housing throughout the county, you know, outside of municipalities. And so this modular homes, tiny homes, manufactured homes are in effect what is affordable housing throughout the county. And so, you know, and a lot of these folks, if they're, you know, have their own land, I mean, they're also paying property tax. So to double tax them with a sort of sales taxes just seems like just not a really great way to to create affordability. And so we're happy that you helped us bring this forward, and the work that you've done to, you know, for us to analyze this, to make sure this is something we want to do. But I think you're absolutely right, Aaliyah. I think this will, you know, encourage different forms of housing in our community. And, you know, I mean, modular homes have really changed a lot, you know, as far as I think there's a lot of opportunities for different types of modular homes that even weren't there in the past and stuff. And, you know, so I think that this is a very growing sector of our housing inventory nationwide. And so to make sure that we, you know, give people a break, this housing isn't cheap, but you know, it's less expensive, but it's certainly not inexpensive. And so giving a small break should help folks who are looking at one of these forms of housing. And so we're happy to do this. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yeah, appreciate your collaboration, your work on this. I have one question and then a comment which I'll offer first, and that is that a reminder that our updated comprehensive plan that we adopted in July of 2019, one of the areas there is around housing affordability, and it very specifically calls out housing diversity, you know, having choices. So I think this is very much in line with a type of housing that typically is less expensive than stick-built housing. And so I'm glad that we are making this sales tax exemption available to manufactured housing, modular housing, tiny homes, and other, I don't know what that means, any closed panel system. And whenever we talk about this, I always bring up, and I hope our economic and workforce development folks are listening, or you could let them know. You know, we used to make these here in Colorado, and I know there's a discussion about a factory being built maybe in Boulder County, but most of the time when we have modular homes or manufactured homes on the lots out on East Mulberry or places like that, they get built in, you know, Kansas or Nebraska. So I'm hoping that somehow if we can expand the demand side of that might provide more economic incentives to actually do this type of manufacturing here in Larimer County. So thank you very much. Oh, my question is, so if you have a $300,000 manufactured home that you're buying over there on East Mulberry, this sales tax exemption, how much would it save that person? I'm asking you to do the, sorry.
I don't have numbers for 300,000, but I was looking at.
Good for you, Tracy.
I was looking at the average of the new community being built in.
Could you talk a little bit more into the
I'm
mic?
sorry.
That's quite all right.
I took the average for the new community what's improved for Berthoud, and that was at 214,000, and the total of the county sales tax on that house would be about 1,700. But when you combined it with the state exemption, they'll be saving about $8,000 on that.
Savings?
Yes.
That's kind of a big deal. Oh gosh, that's good. Well, thank you. And I don't have anything else to add. Lori, anything you'd like to add? Then, oh, let's see. We have a motion. Commissioner Stevens, that's yours.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to approve the resolution to establish the sales tax exemption of manufactured homes, modular homes, tiny homes, or in a closed panel system utilized in the construction of a factory-built residential structure.
Thank you. That is a proper motion. Colleagues, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Moving forward, we now have a sales tax exemption, so maybe folks can have more options. Thank you all very much. Good work. Well done. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Okay, we've gotten through our discussion items. We now go to a very popular item, County Manager Update. Lori Cadridge, that's yours.
Thank you, Commissioners. I only have one thing that I'd like to share this morning, and that is the good work of our Strategic Planning Committee and the update that was provided last week to the community regarding the work of the Goals and Objectives team. A particular shout out to Josh Fudge for bringing a full house to the work session and having people who could speak about the technical work that you were interested in. And I thought that the work of the strategic plan is off to a very good start.
Great. Thank you for informing the public of that very important work session that we recently had. I guess that was yesterday, wasn't it? I believe that was yesterday.
If it was yesterday, I've had
Was
a
it-
long
was it
week
yesterday?
already.
Was
No,
it-
it was last week.
Oh, see what happens when, yeah. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments for the Assistant County Manager? Then we'll move on to Commissioner activity reports. Let's see. Commissioner Shattuck McNally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Lori, thank you for sharing that. I agree with you with your shout out for Josh Fudge and all the work that I thought it was really well done and it was really great
was last
update
week.
and really excited to hear a lot of the progress. So that was really important and meaningful, I think. And so I'm glad to see that. I wanted to just kind of go through some highlights of my week last week. Last week I started with my monthly NAIC, National Association of Counties Environment, Energy, and Land Use Policy Steering Committee and the Rural Action Caucus. And so there's some really great conversations and some things that I shared with Heidi. I need to forward on to her about some of the opportunities to apply for some of these grants for maybe a rural for electric charging stations and other grants for counties. So I will still be following through up with that. And that was some really cool meetings. We have some new folks on those committees. I wanted to share with my colleagues real quick. On Wednesday morning, I attended the community kitchen breakfast in Loveland for Making a Difference. That kitchen is very close to having 3,000 consecutive days of service serving meals. They have not shut down even during the pandemic for delivering meals and serving folks in the community. They are a nonprofit in Loveland and are downtown, and they also share space with Meals on Wheels of Loveland Berthoud, which is one of the larger Meals on Wheels organizations west of the Mississippi. And so it's a great partnership where they share the kitchen and space. There is over 800 volunteers that help serve meals, and they also during the pandemic gave out bags for people to take with during the conditions. They are on track to break over serving 175,000 meals this year, which is a huge increase from last year, to over 1,200 unique individuals. And I asked about the increase for that, and that is a lot of families that are coming in to get meals and getting served. So, and I have seen that as well. So I just wanted to kind of give them a shout out. And if you, with Colorado Gives Day coming up, there's a lot of opportunities online to give to a lot of wonderful nonprofits throughout Larimer County. And I hope that you all consider Community Kitchen as maybe one of those organizations that you might support, because they are actually feeding our community. And I also wanted to share that their revenue is just basically about $500,000 more. So they do a lot with a little bit of money. So but they have seen a almost 37% increase in need in service in meals this year. So I wanted to share that. And I talked about the environment, energy, and land use. I also have the Rural Action Caucus. We have a new chair with that. And so lots going on. Our work session with the Planning Commission last week I thought was really a great one. And we had the water master plan open house right before that. So we got to talk with the community members. And so I thought it was great to see a diverse stakeholder group there, from ag producers to a water provider and some other community members who had some interesting comments to share. And I'm glad that they appreciate some of those stakeholders coming and participating in the public open house, because I thought that was really important and meaningful. So had some meetings with the Forest Health Council and Colorado Department of DNR as we work towards looking at our 2026 legislative priorities. But we're really starting to look at the shared partnership or shared stewardship ideas, because there's a lot going on at the state that's really doing good work, but we need to maybe look at how we partner with everyone and look for those opportunities to leverage. I was very happy to be invited by some of the staff and students of Loveland High School at Thompson School District last week to join their school assembly, where they shared with the students who they had already won a $5,000 award from T-Mobile, who is having these contests across the country to give money back to schools to help them with, their fields or some of the school's appearance or inside the school for activities. And so wanted everyone to know and celebrate, and maybe you can go on and look at this contest. But Loveland High School is the only high school in the state of Colorado. They're top 16 in the country that is included in this competition to get an upgrade to their stadium, because right now Thompson shares a stadium, and Loveland has a side little stadium for their soccer and some of their other games, and how their band practices, and there's no outdoor lighting and some other things they're looking to improve. But they are on track to be in the run for up to $2 million for upgrades and things like this, and a drone show and all this. But just kind of proud to have a Larimer County school be the only one in Colorado, and want to shout out to all the folks at Thompson School District, and Molly Davies and Sean Muscat and Theo and all of them that invited me, but also just celebrating the students and how hard they're working. And it was really fun to go back to that gym and see a lot of folks and celebrate. And you can learn more about that at the Friday Night Lights 5G contest. So good luck to them and wish them all the best. We had our Larimer County Inter-Office Agency Group meeting, and we have a lot of new folks who have come on board with that. So it's a lot of introductory, and we had a lot of discussion, sharing kind of what their thoughts of the past and the things they've done, and what our task is through the state legislature and the state statute that's there, and what we're looking going forward. And I thought that was really important, and really a great opportunity to kind of ground where we're at, where we're going, and it was a good conversation. And then I was really proud to be interviewed by the National Wild Turkey Federation magazine for about wildfire and stuff last week. And folks don't know about the Wild Turkey Federation. They're really involved with this national, our federal government, others in conservation and wildfire work, actually. And so I'm really grateful for that opportunity, and they're doing some great work. And I just want to make sure everyone's kind of checking them out, because they're very involved with a lot of policy making and some of the state groups and organizations, and the Forest Health Council I'm on. So that was a lot of fun to be involved with that. I attended the State Wildfire Resiliency Code Board meeting, was held at CSU. And so I went there Friday to listen to their bylaws and looked at some of the recommendations and research that came from Headwaters Economics, and saw some of that study. And then they were just having a really robust conversation on what is the wildlife urban interface? Where are those boundaries? What is that? And it was a very robust conversation. I encourage everyone to go and listen in. We have several folks from Loveland and other counties and commissioners on their we have the fire marshal from the Level Fire Rescue Authority that's there, and the state forester and others. And I appreciate the warm welcome from them as they came over. They were really excited to have me there in person and listening in. And then it was fun to attend later that day. The city of Fort Collins had the ribbon cutting on their rainbow crosswalk over here, just a couple blocks north of the county building next to the city of Fort Collins chambers, or between their two administrative buildings. And that was really fun to listen to the speeches and the energy. There was lots of staff that came out to celebrate, and a lot of community members. And I just appreciate the words from Claudia Menendez, that's in charge with their equity, diversity, and inclusionary work in that office over there. It was well done, meaningful words, and I think you can go learn on it. I think it was an article in the paper on it. It was exciting to be a part of that and listen to all those things. On Sunday, I went up to the Behavioral Health Services. We helped sponsor the Team Health Fair care at the Museum of Discovery, which they were planning for over 600 people to attend. It was inside and outside, a lot of organizations there, and a lot of opportunities to plant plants. And I tried aerial yoga, which was interesting. I got myself wound up in the little ribbon fabric thing, and a lot of community members from Alliance for Suicide Prevention and others there. That was really well attended, and a lot of feedback from families that they were just so thrilled to be able to do that, and also go through the Museum Discovery was open. There were a lot of families enjoying that. It was a beautiful day outside, and then I think that's it. There's a lot going on, but those are some highlights of my week last week.
Thank you. Commissioner Stevens, anything you'd like to share?
No, thank you. The meeting's been long. I have a meeting in this same room at noon, so I'm all good. Thank you, though.
Okay, well, I will pass as well. We have legal matters. No decision is expected. And let's see. So we won't be coming back on 9. We'll offer the motion, we'll vote on the motion, and then we'll have that conversation. I'll need to take a little bit of a break. So, Commissioner Shattuck McNally, please offer the motion.
I move that the Board of County Commissioners of Larimer County move into executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes 24-6-4024B, conferences with an attorney for the purpose of receiving legal advice about case 1:23-CV-02051-PAB-JPO Astrid versus Board of County Commissioners of Larimer County regarding discovery requests.
Thank you, Commissioner. Proper motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That passes 3-0. Again, we're going into executive session. We are not going to make any kind of decision. We will not be returning. Everyone who is listening, we wish you a good day, as well as our good friends at FCTV. Thank you.